I struggled with sensorimotor OCD for many, many years. And one of the hardest things about it for me was this feeling of disillusionment, this feeling that no matter what I did, it wouldn't matter, that the OCD was always going to win because, always felt like I was aware of the sensations no matter what I did. For a long time, I was getting stuck on swallowing, on the mouth, on breathing. And it felt that everything I was trying to do in order to improve the situation, to kind of look for answers, to listen to podcasts, to overthink it, to overanalyze it, to give it all of my attention, because effectively what I was trying to do was to problem solve it and get rid of it. I had this idea that if I thought about it enough, or if I really put enough energy into trying to solve it, that I really could solve it, and then I could move on and be happy. But unfortunately, taking that kind of approach was actually the very thing that was keeping the cycle going. And I think the most frustrating thing for me is that I ended up with this feeling of disempowerment, this feeling that, I couldn't do it, that maybe other people could learn to overcome, this thing, sensorimotor OCD. But the way in which I was experiencing it was different in some way. And, that I wouldn't be able to kind of get out of that kind of snare that I found myself in. And, for a long time, this took me off into a very negative place in my head, where I'd really convinced myself that that was true, that, I wasn't ever going to overcome it, that I was always going to be stuck with this. And of course, when you're feeling that way, when you feel that this thing is always going to keep you ensnared, it's always going to stop you from being your kind of best version, then, that can make you feel even worse. And, I think something, sensorimotor OCD is something that really compounds over time unless we learn how to deal with it properly. And what that involves is actually learning that you are empowered, not in whether you're actually aware of the sensations or not, but in how you respond to those things. And this is the key idea that we have to kind of really get to in order to begin to make any real progress with sensorimotor OCD whatsoever, is that, you are allowed to be aware of the sensations. I think for so long, that was the very thing that I was constantly trying to get rid of. I was constantly fighting those sensations. I was telling myself, I have to get rid of them, and then I can be happy. Then I can start living my life. Then I can do all of these things. And of course, that was the very thing that actually was keeping me trapped in that kind of cycle. The moment I began to tell myself a slightly different story about this, that I was allowed to be aware, that actually being aware didn't mean that everything else had to be on hold, that, I could actually get on with my life and live my life. But, in order for that to happen, I really had to learn how to take control of rumination. And this is absolutely essential. If you're constantly thinking about the awareness all day long, and you're trying to problem solve it in some way, or get rid of it, or you're constantly analyzing it, you're keeping it in the forefront of your mind. You're actually giving more energy to it. The important thing is that whenever you notice it, what you need to do is tell yourself, yep, there it is, but I've got more important things to focus on today. I've got people that I want to speak to. I've got activities that I want to do. And yeah, I might be very anxious about that awareness, but that's also okay. I think sometimes the heightened anxiety can derail us because we tell ourselves, I can't deal with it. And, until I'm not aware of that, my anxiety won't come down. So I do have to get rid of that awareness first. But actually, that's not true. It's the other way around. The important thing that we need to do first is to begin to take the action that we would be taking if we were already feeling better. Because once you start to do that and you say, you know what, I'm going to allow these sensations to be there in the background, they can come along for the ride. That's when you really start to take back control and you start to feel more empowered again in your life. You start realizing that OCD, it doesn't have anything over you unless you give that ownership away. And this is really, really important to understand. We're actually the ones that are empowered when we focus on our response, how we respond to the awareness. That is the key in beginning the process of overcoming sensorimotor OCD. And that was very, very transformative for me in my own personal story of dealing with sensorimotor. So many thanks. If you are struggling with sensorimotor OCD, I do have a specific 12-week program that is designed to help you to break free from this really annoying and infuriating subtype of OCD. It includes weekly one-to-one coaching sessions. There's also worksheets, meditations. There's an optional group session and community. So if you're interested in signing up for that, you can by heading over to my website at robertjamescoaching.com. There's a link in the show notes. Many thanks. I really hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. This video is for education only. It's not therapy or medical advice. If you're struggling, please speak with a licensed mental health professional.